Welcome back to the Zyori podcast. It is April 7th, 2018, 9 o'clock a.m. Mountain Time, 11 a.m. on the East Coast for our special guest here. We've got Dylan Matusek. This is the fourth time he's been on the podcast. We've previously described him as the philosophy major, but now he is an educator. He's an award-winning writer. He is also the editor of 2 books, and he is our dear friend. He's back again. Dylan, how you feeling on this fine Saturday morning?
It is truly a fine Saturday morning. It is wonderful.
I gotta get some accolades.
Great. Yeah, you really do.
You guys got too many accolades, man. I'm an award-winning analyst. I won a plunger.
Where did you win a plunger?
What are you talking about? At Captain's Draft.
Oh.
I won the plunger. I'm an award-winning analyst.
I forgot about that.
So I would love to be introed as an award-winning analyst. Thank you.
What kind of analyst?
I came dead last in a Dota prediction thing, but I still won. The award was for who came last. So.
So you are technically.
So I am the award winner. There was no first place award, so it's fine.
Well, the other issue was that Trent got so deep, he felt like the only way I can recover is to double down. And then once you do that 2 or 3 times, it's like that gambler's fallacy, and he went deep, man. And there was no one match, because I think it was like a plus-minus, right? If you get it wrong, you lose a point. If you get it right, you gain a point. So
the only way for me to catch up possibly was to bet on the underdogs every time. And, well, you know how that went. So I got a plunger out of it, which I left in D.C. because there's no way I was packing that thing home.
Yeah, that's fun to carry on a plane. Trying to explain to everybody why you're carrying on a plunger. No, it has sentimental value. This plunger is very special to me. I couldn't check it. I didn't want it to get damaged. All right. So
speaking of esports swag / leaving things behind, did you get your backpack back from Romania?
From PGL? Fuck yeah,
Did you get to keep your...
Oh hell yeah. I threw it in my check bag. It's sitting in my bedroom upstairs. I got the same hoodie that you do.
I had zero space. Literally zero space in my bag because I had packed extremely light and compact, so I had nothing to check just in case something happened with Sarah because she was still pregnant, and if I had to leave instantly, I didn't want to have to deal with luggage at all, right?
Right.
So I had like one bag. I physically could not take this backpack home. And when I was leaving, the housekeeping came for like the last day, and she'd seen the bag the day before. And she was like, "Oh, really nice backpacks. I've seen them around." And she left. And then on the last day, she comes in, she goes, "You have 2 bags?" And I was like, "Yeah." I could tell exactly what she was going for. She's like, "Do you need 2 bags?" And I was like, "Well, I don't even think I could pack this to take it home." And she was like, "Oh, I would love it so much. I will go mountain hiking with it." And she does this with the bag. So I gave her the bag. And she was extremely happy.
Wow. So she just took a PGL bag, having no idea what PGL is, or
she was pretty friggin' psyched.
Wow.
She was super excited to have a new backpack.
Well,
so
Trent, you're a gentleman.
So don't tell PGL though, because I love you PGL, and I kept your hoodie. But
I thought you were gonna trash the backpack that you normally travel with, and then just replace it with the PGL backpack. I thought that was the working plan.
Okay, here's my problem though. Hey, can you picture the Red Bull Battlegrounds white backpack that like 8 of the talent have?
Yeah.
And then like 5 people show up in an event with that same backpack?
Yeah.
Not the smartest thing. So I didn't want to do that with the PGL backpack because then it might get confused with someone else's bag and someone else takes it.
Okay.
So, yeah.
That's smart. You're thinking ahead. That happened to me once in middle school. The same backpack as somebody else. They grabbed mine by mistake and then wandering around the hallways with this weird backpack trying to find your backpack.
What a harrowing tale.
I know, it really was.
And somehow you made it.
So, all right, let's get the Dota out of the way, and then we're going to talk non-Dota related stuff with Dylan here. Dylan is not much of a Dota aficionado, but friends through a chain of real-life friends, and in the past podcasts, the comments were actually strikingly positive, which is rare for YouTube. So I feel like we're maybe doing something right. Trent, before you signed on this morning, we were talking about how the last episode that Dylan was on was one of the most viewed podcasts if you factor out the ones that have made it on Reddit, which is like 2 or 3. But there are a lot of people there talking. And one of the #1 comments on that video is, "This would have been awesome if Trent was there." I don't know what happened. So we're making dreams come true with this.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. I'm glad.
This is our dream.
This is the dream. So DAC just ended last night. Mineski, Southeast Asia, they took first place. Apparently the finals were quite the epic what's the word
Best
for it?
of 5.
Best of 5. There you go.
The full way.
3-2, the full leg, and Mineski was able to take out LGD and win this major. Kind of a big deal for C Dota. And now I want to pull up the DPC. Where are we standing, Trent? What does this mean for Mineski?
Oh, I haven't even looked at the things yet. Actually, that's a good point. I was just gonna say how Virtus Pro, like, lower bracket from the very beginning, right? Because they lost to Liquid 2-0, and then they had to go beat EG, Vici Gaming, then they beat TNC 2-1, and then they lost 2-1 to LGD, and then LGD couldn't clutch the final. So Virtus Pro is still absolutely terrifying because they just got another top 4, which means in terms of DPC, they're also removing points out of the pool because they're already guaranteed TI, and now every point that VP gets essentially lowers the bar for everyone else, right?
Yeah, absolutely. VP has almost 7,900 points in first. Second place is Liquid at 4,700, and Secret is right behind Liquid, also at 4,700, just a difference of 24 points. And then that puts Mineski fourth at 3,100, with Newbie trailing at 2,200 behind that. A lot of Chinese teams in the top 8 right now. 5.
Yeah.
It's Newbie, Vici, LGD, and Vici J Thunder that are 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th right now.
There's a Chinese team called Vici.
Yep, Vici Gaming.
Yep, Vici Gaming.
VICI.
Yeah.
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
Yes.
It is.
It's been their thing forever, I guess, but
yeah. So anyhow, this is huge. I don't think this secures Mineski 100%. No, it certainly doesn't.
it's very close to,
But
though,
it-
because
yeah.
because if you think about VP are going to be at these other events, they're likely going to be absorbing more points. Like when everyone was factoring how many points do you probably need to get TI, I believe Knoxville said it was around 3,200, and they're currently 3,150. But I'm guessing that calculation probably was that doesn't take into account someone like VP who guarantees so early and then keeps taking points. So theoretically, it's very likely that VP, Liquid, and Secret are already in, and Mineski are that next team that are super close to probably being in.
That is an interesting point, actually. Now that Virtus Pro is guaranteed to have qualified, that doesn't mean they're going to stop playing. They're still going to compete in events for money, and they're also still going to accumulate the DPC. So, yeah, I hadn't really thought about that, but very interesting. I'm going to have to go back and watch the series. Of course, it was overnight, so I know we say it all the time, but I just can't fucking do it, man. I can't invert my schedule and stay up all night and watch Dota anymore. I don't have that youthful vigor. I remember the first GSL Season 2, watching Korean StarCraft, waking up at 3 in the morning, and you're fucking pumped, you're loaded, you're ready to go, and I don't have that same spark anymore, Trent. I'll catch the VODs. It's okay.
Yeah, I've been I've watching the tournament differently has basically been my way to do it. I think I said that on What the Duck too, but just going back and watching perspectives and stuff rather than the live broadcast with the casters and everything, which is great. But I don't know about you, but I find ever since I started casting more and more, I don't get the same enjoyment out of watching a cast for the most part.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. Do you feel the same way? I'd rather just be casting it myself, or I'd rather be watching it in a different frame of view to try and learn more stuff?
Yeah, I would agree. I think I have the issue. Every content creator has that, and it's not limited just to esports or anything else. But if you spend a lot of time creating content, it's hard to also spend the same amount of time consuming content, and these days we're not really casting 20 or 30 hours a week. It's more sporadic where we'll have a tournament, we'll do crazy coverage for 5 or 6 days, and then we won't have anything for a couple of weeks. But when you're in that kind of mode, the last thing you want to do after casting for 8 hours is catch up on the VODs and listen to somebody else cast. It's just I need to get away from the computer kind of a thing. So I definitely agree. It's a different perspective. It's hard to catch everything when you're also working on other stuff. If you're in the zone working on Midas Mode or Captain's Draft and that kind of stuff, I find it a little bit difficult to check out and just watch games alone. I also find it to be more of a social event. If I'm with a group of people, or if Mott has Dota on and we're watching it together,
yeah, exactly. That's way better.
I'm much more engaged. But I very seldom turn on a live stream and just sit there and watch it by myself. It's usually just background noise, or I check in on it. But it's been a while since I've really sat down and watched, especially if it's on another time zone. I'm not a solo grinder in consuming content anymore. For better or for worse. Does that make us hypocrites because we make so much content and we're like, hey, dude, you need to turn up and watch our content. I want you to hear my opinions and see me. And here we are. Say,
it just feels
can't
like a waste of time
to watch content.
I feel like I'm hurting myself if I don't try and make content out of it. I should be watching it and streaming it and just bettering myself rather than, as much as I love enjoying the work of our peers, because I do. I love being at a tournament and watching the games and listening to the casters, but I would rather, if I'm at home sitting here, I should probably be trying to create something, try and better myself to hopefully make it so my next time is better. But
that's true.
Speaking of which, throughout this week,
Huh?
you can watch my channel, and I'll probably be streaming some of those games. So
there you go.
Come hang out, guys. It'll be great.
What do you got, Dylan?
If it's worth anything, I find the same is true for two-sided things like that, where you watch to learn or you watch to enjoy, and then you also create.
Yeah.
So for like writing, for me, I much would prefer to be writing. Like I don't prefer like some people will describe it's like two sides of the same coin. It's 50-50.
Well, like reading
You
and writing, you
read
mean?
50% and then you read, right? And it's not like that. It's like 5.95. It's not even.
I
it's
actually
not
feel
even
the
close.
same because I really enjoy writing, and for a lot of websites, you know, like I write copy and marketing stuff, and when I'm in the zone, writing is really fun. I'm not a big reader though. You know, I guess although I hate that saying like in this day, like you can't say I don't read. I do so much fucking reading on the internet, it's ridiculous, and I don't know why that can't translate to a book. You know, if I sit down with just a novel, I read half of a chapter, and I'm like, well, that was fun. I'm going to bed now. Meanwhile, I can grind 4 episodes of SVU before I pass out. You know, what is the difference?
Dude, that's very interesting that you mentioned that. I do think that's a new form of literacy. It's just the problem, as it were, the only real problem I found is that reading teaches you how to write so much better than like watching videos or things like that. But I think that watching videos is a very straightforward and normal, popular way of consuming content, and it has a lot of advantages over reading. So, you know, reading can be very boring. You know, reading can be like dead, still, uninteresting.
Have either of you read Game of Thrones? Because I know we all watch it, but
we all I don't think you can read Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones doesn't exist. It's not a book.
Well, whatever. I mean, what is it called? I'm so disconnected from the reading. I don't even know what the fuck the books are called.
That's great. It's Song of Ice and Fire. But no, I have not read it.
I've heard the books are spectacular
fantastic.
because they're written from like that first person perspective, kind of like the show is, where it jumps around in different chapters or from like a different person, you know, different character and stuff. And that's kind of cool, you know, and it's like they kill people off in the same way, but the show is just so fantastic. I don't know.
Yeah,
it's hard to compare them, but I don't know if I'm going to bother to read them. I already know what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of so one of the things people will mention, and they mention this about every single book, they make a point of it, is that the books have a lot of detail. So they have a lot of detail, they have a lot of nuance, they have things that you would never conceivably be able to capture if not for time alone.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a book will take you hours and hours and days and months to read, and the Game of Thrones episode will be a finite amount of time every time, unless you're pausing it for some reason. You're watching scenes.
That's a fair point. I guess I hadn't really thought about that difference between the
so
movies.
Convenient.
So, okay, anything else Dota related we need to get off our chest, Trent? We just did a What the Duck the other day, so I feel like we've
you have a thing called What the Duck.
Yeah, the Moonduck podcast is called What the Duck. It's great for SEO, man. There's like 8 other things called What the Duck that pop up, and it's terrible. It's really
Oh no. We're not that clever, are we?
No.
I will say I've been playing some Dota, which is fun. You know, getting the chance.
Yeah.
Sarah has been great. She's very understanding if I say like, you know, like can I get like 2 hours to just like go to the basement? And she's like, yeah, okay. You know, we work it in the day. I plan it like
That's
5 hours in advance. And I'm like, can you handle this 2 hour block where I will not be available and I can strictly be playing Dota? She's like, yeah, okay. That's been good. I've been getting my Dota time in, even with the baby.
Wow.
And I've also been enjoying watching you and Mott's pubs when I can't. Sometimes I'll be holding the baby and I can't play, right? So I'm trying to calm down, and I don't feel like watching Netflix, so I put on the Dota client. I check out, what's Andrew up to? And I see you owning in some Oracle game. I'm like, damn, dude, Andrew's slaying it right now. Then I open Mott's game, and there's an Underlord feeding down mid. And then he tweets about it like 20 minutes later.
Yeah, it's been pretty up
great.
and down. I feel like I've been playing a lot of Dota and I've been making no progress. I'm just this shitbag Legend 4 that is running into games, owning sometimes, getting owned sometimes, and it's just this medley of like feeders and non-feeders and people that are so confused. And I've been playing a lot of Core Dazzle. In the last patch, they buffed the poison. It's actually pretty ridiculous. If you can get, I'm telling you, Shadow Fiend versus Dazzle mid, when you hit level 7, you just, even at level 6, you just fucking ult him, you drop the poison, you auto-attack him like 4 times in Grave. The Shadow Fiends always try to man up on you. They don't realize how much damage the poison does, and they die every fucking time. It is incredible, Trent. The poison damage is nuts. You know, it stays on now when you auto-attack. So it does like 700 DPS at level 6, or at level 4, and it reapplies. So just you think about those numbers, man. Think about it.
Damn it! I thought we won the rank game, and it was just too friggin' Noob games. Oh yeah, and by the way, Gary's been playing tons of Core Dazzle as well. So
Really?
you should play Core Dazzle too.
Or
No,
off
he
later?
played it mid and safe lane. He does Helm first.
Hell. Whoa.
Yeah, because the attack from the creep procs the Shadow Poison thing.
Oh my God. All right.
Yeah, it's very next level.
I'm gonna do that today. I'm gonna try that. That sounds awesome.
It's very good.
Okay.
It's really funny to listen to you guys because my little brother is a huge League of Legends fan, and he loves to play League of Legends. What's the off for, buddy?
I mean,
well, we have to hate League. It's kind of a thing.
It's true.
Sorry.
It's kind of our job, I guess.
Yeah.
It's like League and Dota.
I'm just curious.
It's one of those things where they're so closely related, but they have completely separate audiences and player bases. So there's just that natural rivalry of, to outsiders, they're basically the same game. It's 5 versus 5. You pick heroes, you ban heroes, they go down lanes, you kill towers, you finish off the big final structure. That's how you win the game. Very similar objectives, but the mechanics are very different. The hero diversity is completely different. It's a little bit hard to explain without getting into technical, super nerdy details, but let's just say one of them is more casual.
Chess and checkers, baby.
Yeah,
it's chess and checkers.
Chess and checkers. There you go. Dota is chess, and League is checkers.
Oh wow, that's pretty.
I mean, it's true.
Pretty damning.
It's like you've ever played Magic the Gathering? Magic is Dota. Hearthstone is League of Legends.
Okay, well.
I don't know if
that is also very damning as a person who's played Magic and watched Hearthstone, because that's all I'll deign to do with that.
But wow, I'm glad to get some validation in my Core Dazzle, because it's felt good. You know, and I like to play on feel, Trent. That's part of why I'm so bad, because I play.
Yeah,
on
I can tell.
So I was saying is I love listening to you guys because I have this super backwater understanding of what you're saying, because I would watch him play. You know, I'd sit there next to him and I'd watch him play his games and stuff and ask him questions about it, and he's so miserably bad at explaining, not at playing, at explaining to me what is going on in the game.
Well, it's hard.
No, it's not. No, Andrew, it's not hard, because I've played games that are very complicated, and outsiders will ask me, what does this mean? I won't say, oh, well, this is a 2/3 first striking haste creature, and you just sort of attack, and it'll attack their life total.
Well,
do you understand anything that I'm saying right now?
Well, I know what you mean.
But
so
yes, it's Magic. But to an outsider, like, what does any of that mean? That's how he talks to me with League of Legends. You know, he's like, oh, you know, like, we're just gonna go and attack Baron right now, and you know, we'll get our buffs, and as soon as we get our buffs, we'll be walking around and we'll be fast, and
that's part of the dichotomy, though. Every game has its own lingo. You know, so let's say you understood League of Legends. Some of it will translate to Dota, but there's way different acronyms. Every item has a completely different name, has a completely different build-up. You know, it's the individual parts are so completely different that it's very hard to understand. You know, did you see, Trent, by the way, that Battle.Right just announced like a $80,000 or $100,000 league or big tournament that they're doing? It's like a Battle.Right is putting some cash.
Dude, I've turned on that game a couple times on Twitch. I've never played it, but it looks kind of cool. I get the idea.
It's based off of Bloodline Champions, which I don't know if anyone out there has played. It's sort of like an OG game. The whole concept is World of Warcraft arenas without the grinding of World of Warcraft. So there's no items. You know, you have like whatever it is, 5 or 6 spells, and basically everything is a skill shot. So the skill cap of the game is really high, which is really cool in theory, but it makes it very punishing to play. And because there's no grinding, it's very like it gets old.
It's just
fast.
Dota team fights.
Yeah,
right?
it's just Dota team fights. All the other stuff is gone. So Dota has some boring parts, but anyway, it's kind of a cool game. I played Bloodline Champions. I haven't played Blood.Right too much, and I installed it last night. I turned on some casts, and I had the same exact experience that Dylan was just describing, where you hear people talking about spells and characters, and you're just like, Jesus Christ, this is an entirely different world, you know? And
right, but those are casters, man. They're talking to, like, they're talking to people who know what you're talking about. They understand the language you're speaking. My little brother, like, he doesn't, you know, it's like he's trying to teach me English by, like, saying English words to me.
Well, he's just not a motivated teacher. You know, he doesn't really give a shit if you understand. That is the real problem here.
No, it's not. It was not for him. It was just that I told him, I'm like, man, you're awful at this. You're awful at telling me what's going on. And he's like, what do you mean? I'm like, every single time I ask you a question, it's wards and buffs and barons and all these things. And I'm like, I don't know that. You don't know that I don't know that. That's the thing. And, it's out of it. It's not.
Dude,
it's not out of malice or lack of effort. It's just out of ignorance. He's not. Some people I think are really good at teaching, and some people are.
He's not
good at teaching.
He's just ignorant.
No.
I like
he's just ignorant.
That's good.
Yeah, that's understandable.
That's how I feel when I read Shakespeare, dude. The Boulder Shakespeare Festival is coming up again, Trent.
Oh wow.
I am pumped to go. Last year they had Hamlet. They had oh shit. What's the one with the shrew? Taming of the Shrew. Saw that one. Caesar. Caesar sucks, dude. I don't know why people like Caesar. Shit's boring as fuck. After Caesar dies, I had no idea what was going on, and I had really no inclination to learn. The Taming of the Shrew, however, that one kept me giggling until the very end.
Yeah, that was funny. I remember. I think I saw that in college. That's when I last saw it. There was another one that was quite comical too. And I like Shakespeare. I like plays. I'm in. I'm down to go chill, watch something.
All right, dude. You
There's
would
something
actually
impressive
really like
about
it. The amphitheater that they have on the Boulder campus it's unreal. It is really like one of those little old timey ones, and it has like the little stone benches and shit. But they give you the little cushioned seats with the backs that you can sit on, so you're comfortable, but you're living rustic. You really feel like you're getting an authentic theater experience. Buy wine by the glass. Very classy.
Yeah, you're cool, dude. It's outside. Right?
It is outside.
That does sound
it is. It's
classy.
Really great. Zyori is a little giggler. What does that mean? Is that some kind
You're
of
a little
British
giggler.
slang? Giggle boy.
Oh, call me theirs. That's the one I saw that was quite good in university as well. That was very funny.
Little Giggler sounds like a good name for a song.
Little Giggler. Sounds like a rapper.
Little Giggler.
The least threatening rapper ever.
Yeah, that is a good
I will say Shakespeare was one class that I took in undergrad that I thought I would regret, and I really didn't. It fit perfectly into a time slot during my senior year as an elective. I was like, why not? How hard could it be? And it was super interesting. It was like Shakespeare with context and a good professor that like cared about making it relevant. You're like, holy shit, this stuff is really cool. Now I understand why people appreciate Shakespeare. And when you have bad teachers that just don't, like, I remember the first thing she said was, this is written in another fucking language, all right? Without translation, you will not understand it. So don't feel bad about not understanding it when you read it. If you did understand it, that would be, like, dumb impressive. So she was the first person that ever said that. And I always felt like, I read this and I have no idea what's going on until you explain it to me. So fuck it, why even try? And that's a very, I don't know. It's a weird feeling to have one of those moments where it just clicks like that.
All right. So what are now that we're past Dota, we're past explaining Dota, what are our exciting philosophy topics for today?
That's true. What I think we wanted to talk about some new media stuff, which is very tangentially relevant to us, Trent, because Facebook has been making so many headlines about being a shitster, right? Their stock has been going down. Zuckerberg said he's going to testify in front of Congress or government or something because of the potential privacy invasion. I think New Zealand and another country have now started investigations into Facebook about whether or not they actually violated people's privacy with stealing their contacts and selling their data in all sorts of ways. They didn't really disclose that clearly and all sorts of stuff. So that is a piece of it that is relevant to our sector also, just for your FYI, Dylan, with Facebook making a play into the broadcasting space. They signed a big deal with ESL, one of the big tournament organizers in esports. So now Facebook is home to a lot of live esports content, and it's been very controversial. Let's just say Dota fans have spoken out and said they prefer Twitch by a long shot. So
that was poor timing as well.
Yeah, that was right before all of this negative press came out. So anyway, it's a weird platform, and a lot of new agey millennial types are very sensitive about their data, who's looking at it, who they're sending it to, and what they're doing with it. And yeah, it's a whole big thing. So I know you've been doing a little bit of Facebook stuff. What are we working here? What's the face of new media for us today?
Yeah. Okay. So one of the things I've been doing is I've been doing something that everybody does, which is, or lots of people do rather, which is just post political opinions about things, or go on other people's posts of political opinions and then comment on those things. And so I'm definitely the kind of person who wants to have a good discussion with someone, and a good discussion to me is different than a good debate. A good debate is different than a good argument. And
Is
I think there
Facebook
can be good
the
arguments.
platform to have a great debate? Because I share some of that sentiment, and I've completely given up. I'm a Facebook user. I look at that shit every fucking day, and I rarely post anymore because it's just not worth it. People are denser than shit.
Dude, let me make a believer out of you, because I was not exactly a believer. I was someone who was willing to do it because I enjoyed it. I was willing to do it because it's very natural for me. It's something I can't help sometimes. If someone starts a debate or starts an argument, whether or not I want to, sometimes I just sort of let things go, and that's something I need to work on and get better at. But it's a part of who I am for sure. So okay, let me try and make a believer out of you. So something I said on the last podcast, Trent, just to sort of fill you in, we were talking about the Charlottesville
rally.
Yeah, we're talking about the rally.
Yeah. It's the Nazi stuff.
And yeah.
That was the guy that ran all the people over in the car.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and even further examination of it, you find it's even less about Nazis than people were saying. And I was already believing that people were overblowing how many Nazis were there. I'm now even of the opinion that people are overblowing what Antifa is, because I had a very skeptical and negative opinion of them in my last in our last podcast.
Mm-hmm.
But to connect it to what we're talking about now, one of the things I said was, if you're debating someone and you're talking with someone, we were talking about free speech because that was a big issue at Charlottesville.
Yeah.
These guys, should these people, should any group who wants to shout over these alt-right speakers, these people who disagree with them, should you be allowed to shout out and like literally if someone's talking on
like
stage,
drown them out?
Yeah.
drown them out? Yes. Yeah. Is that moral? Is that ethical? Is that going to lead to good outcomes for us as a society? That kind of stuff. And one of the things I said was, if you shouldn't give up on debates just because you might not change the person's mind. You might be in a debate with somebody. You might have a bunch of people shouting at you. You might be on stage and talking. That doesn't mean you should give up. And there's a couple of reasons why. And one of the big reasons why is because whether it is you're talking to a bunch of people who are yelling over your words, or you're talking to one person who is just firm. Just they're not going to believe what you believe. At the worst, they're going to be strawmanning you and just ripping apart your argument and making you look like an idiot, or trying to make you look like an idiot, find every flaw that's going to inevitably be in your argument. Or at best, they're going to be being like, yeah, that's true, but, and they're always going to say, yeah, it's true, but this is how I feel about this, and it's not really going to go anywhere necessarily for the two of you in the moment.
Right.
It's like the planting seeds type thing. I mean, I would sort of agree. Just because you don't change someone's mind right in that moment, you seldom get that like weird satisfaction you think you're going to get when you shut somebody's argument down in a debate and they're like, actually, you're completely right. I'm totally wrong. That almost never happens, right? Unless you're really with a specific kind of demographic of people that you're arguing with. But that doesn't mean that argument you have doesn't start them down this path of starting to empathize with the other side or look at it from a different angle that they never really saw before. And who knows, maybe a few months down the road or a year down the road, that conversation leads them on a path of self-discovery to change their mind, right? That probably happens a lot more than you realize because it's not often people go down that journey, then come back and say, you know what, dude, thanks for telling me I was completely wrong about abortion. I know I yelled at you at the time, but you really sniped it. That just, people don't do that often. That's not common human behavior. So I would agree. It's not necessarily, you can't 100% correlate. Well, it's a useless effort because everyone is just locked in their ways,
So I personally find it so hard to commit to those debates because like, I guess I view it like, I just don't, if I'm not directly encountering you every day in my life, I just so don't care, which is a very, I guess, kind of a shitty attitude, maybe a bit apathetic, but it's like, unless you're like openly being like, yo, kill that guy, he's bad. If it's something to the point of like, I don't know, if I can't be asked, I can't be bothered, I'm like, is this really worth my time? I'd rather focus on the people around me. I just can't get into internet debates.
You're
man.
a tree guy,
I can't do it.
You're living in your own bubble.
Dude.
You're there, and you're like, you know what, guys? Fuck all this noise. We've got a fire. We're gonna sip on some Kool-Aid, and we're gonna watch a movie tonight. You know?
But it's like,
I think that's very good.
but shouldn't you also
That's
put
an
in some of that
extremely-
effort too?
Well, you could if you want to, and that's what I'll make the case for. But
It goes
your
both ways.
perspective is extremely close to my perspective.
I mean, I have
Like I the only reason I want to have these debates on large scale topics is because I like having debates.
Yeah.
But the large scale topics, in my opinion, a lot of the time do not affect most people. They're irrelevant.
right.
You know, most like federally discussed issues are irrelevant to people. Most things that are on the news are irrelevant to most people.
I mean,
Terrorism.
Yeah.
I've
How
seen...
many terrorism has made so many headlines?
Yeah.
Terrorism, murder accounts for less than 1% of all deaths. Just all deaths.
Yeah.
Global sort of thing.
Right.
It probably accounts for about 90% of the deaths in the news cycle, though,
Right.
or more. You know what I mean? That's kind of
Yes.
crazy.
Yeah, it's like
that's
cigarettes are
amazing.
still a way bigger killer than terrorism or gun violence or anything else by orders of magnitude. But
Yep.
you know, it's
Yep.
it's the slow death. It's not as zingy. You know, it's you did it
No,
to yourself.
exactly.
It's
And so there's a sort of a balancing act there, I think, because part of me is like, well, it's a company, they're perfectly within their right to produce whatever it is they think is going to be profitable.
Right.
And I think that's true. Like that's I wouldn't ever want to take that away from someone. That doesn't mean they don't have a moral obligation or a moral obligation might be too strong of a word, but at least a consideration of a moral duty to do something that is helpful for everyone in the long run. And I don't think that the coverage is helpful for everyone in the long run. I think it's definitely profitable. The market has proven that it can be profitable, that it can raise our standard of living, that it can do fantastic things. It is also proven that if there's profit to be had in something, then people will pursue it regardless of its moral qualities, of its ethical goodness or badness.
yeah.
And
Well-
yeah, that's evident in all kinds. I mean, that's right in front of our faces. Like, how many people will extol their love of what McDonald's is doing now that we know how unhealthy it is to eat McDonald's food.
Hey man, McDonald's has come a long way. Okay, I'm gonna stand up for McDonald's right here. All right, an Egg McMuffin is a relatively hearty breakfast on the go compared to a lot of other things. At least it's got some fucking protein in it. You know what I'm saying? It's got a real egg. It's a real English muffin. It's meat that came from some sort of living creature that was then processed and stamped into an appetizing like shape. But you know,
You're a great American, Andrew.
overall, seriously, McDonald's like responded to the market. They realized that it was just a losing war trying to do this really unhealthy thing, and they've made steps to use like regular ingredients. It used to be complete trans fatty garbage, and now it's just buttery, greasy, sort of mid-tier Americana food. All I'm saying is it's better and it's improving. McDonald's is a business first, and they care about what the demand of the market is, and the demand of the market has been trending towards healthy, and they've been following that much more aggressively than a lot of other businesses that are, you know, you could draw parallels to. I digress, however.
No,
I'm
that's
also
not
trying to get a
digression at all.
McDonald's sponsorship, guys.
Wow, that's
Send
very
them this
transparent.
reel when you defended McDonald's.
That
Here's the
time I
thing,
said they were mid-tier, a bold defense.
Here's the thing. Another thing people don't think about necessarily is the one of the other positive effects that McDonald's has had is that McDonald's provides extremely cheap food to people who otherwise would be eating nothing, like worse than nothing, like things that are like you said, they're not high in protein. They don't have any kind of consideration. They have food, actually.
An Egg McMuffin
You know,
is way
and-
better than a regular muffin for breakfast by like orders of magnitude. Again, to overuse that phrase, dude. One
Yeah.
of them is just sugar, and the other one has some fucking protein in it. It's a big
And an
difference.
Egg McMuffin is better than nothing. And that's what these companies cater to. They cater towards people who it caters to a very wide crowd, I think. But
Dude,
part of
it's-
their
it's
crowd
like
is people
McDonald's
people
is
who
the
cannot
global
afford
brand now.
other food.
I think I saw an article. I hope I'm not misremembering, but I think McDonald's is now regarded as the international brand. Like it surpassed Coca-Cola because
I believe that.
it's so
I feel like sodas have been on the decline.
Yeah, and it's just so prolific. Like McDonald's is everywhere. Think about how much we travel, Trent. Literally every country, it's like, oh, there's a McDonald's.
Yeah.
Oh, I wonder what that weird bean thing at McDonald's is. They're everywhere.
Speaking of branding, do you want to know who fell from 4th in Canada to 50th in the last consumer branding survey?
It wasn't that guy.
It's Timmy Hose.
Tim
Hortons has fallen from 4th place to like 50th in Canada.
What happened, dude?
Who's Tim Horton?
Tim Horton. It's kind of like
it's like our
Wawa.
Dunkin' Donuts, basically.
Yeah, okay.
It's everywhere. It is the shit. But they got bought out years ago by the people who own Burger King. Everything started sucking. McDonald's started coming out with coffee that was cheaper and tasted better. And yeah, they just plummeted. They used to be like this Canadian icon. And there were all these commercials that were like feel-good commercials with like, you know, Tim Hortons, like, we let your kids play soccer and hockey and we're the best. And now they're just
official sponsor of youth hockey.
Yeah. Yep.
Wow.
So anyway, to get back to the
Yes,
new media stuff. No, I mean that was good. I love tangents. Tangents are one of my favorite things. So who's gonna complain about that?
Jesus.
But except for 1,000 people on Twitch. But so no. What I was saying before is you might not ever change. I like that you brought up the seed sowing argument or not argument necessarily, but point.
Mm-hmm.
Andrew, because that is certainly a part of it. That is certainly a part of the whole thing. Maybe down the line you will see some changes in these people, maybe not. I think people get frustrated because they don't see immediate change.
Oh, yeah. Especially in our world of instant gratification, right? Isn't that the whole click of social media, is that you can post a picture and immediately see, oh, my God, Stephanie liked it. Oh, my God, Nancy commented on it. Like, it's that instant gratification of putting something out there and seeing how people react very quickly. You know, we're wired for that now. TV is the same way. Like, look at Twitch is just taking TV and then adding a chat room. So now you can say something and go, oh, God, what are they saying about me? You know, that instant gratification anytime you say something. Sorry to interrupt, but you're right. I mean, it's hard.
So what I'm talking about is something that's a little different. So one of the things I've noticed that's been happening as I've been posting more of these, commenting, posting, talking with people. And also, as a side note, I record all of this. I record every single bit of it. I copy and paste it as it's going on. Anytime someone posts another thing, I have another document which I've pasted it all in. And
it's all too common practice these days, dude. There's like a whole army of Redditors out there that they see a controversial tweet and they're like, oh, I'm screenshotting that shit. I know that's getting deleted.
Yeah, and I mean, I do it for a lot of reasons, but one of the reasons is because I don't want it to go away forever. Like, I want to be able to go back to that conversation and look over it and see how I responded to things and see how I changed and things like that. And yeah, just generally examine it. But also I don't want to get destroyed by someone who has the information. They can copy it down, they can paste it, delete it, and then show it to an employer and be like, look at what he said. Isn't he an idiot? Shouldn't you fire him?
I'm sure that happens. But I remember my grandparents telling me after I graduated college, like, you know, you got to stop putting curse words on social media. That could really hold you back from your career. And it's just like, you just have no idea. You should listen to the podcast. You really have no idea. It's out there, you know. But is that a real thing? Like, do people go, oh, man, you said shit on your social media. Oh, man, you're not kind of caliber individual we want around this office. I mean, Jesus Christ.
Well, it depends. I mean, it depends on your occupation.
So,
that's
true.
Who employs you?
Me? Nobody. I'm a contractor, dog.
So I work for the school district of Philadelphia, and if someone gets wind of even well, I mean, if they get away anything controversial that I say, truly controversial, which I'd be well willing to say, then they can fire me without discretion. They can fire me without conversation. They have that's within their contract. They can fire you at any time for any reason.
But isn't that just at will employment in general? Isn't that just like how that works? Like, there's a lot of at will employers on the East Coast.
Yes, and that's fine. I mean, I have no problems with at will employment, but there is a difference. You know, if you are Zyori and you are employed by yourself and you are finding your own revenue, you're an entrepreneur, you're finding your own opportunities, you have products that you sell and advertise for, and things like that, then it's you have to answer to people in the way that you have to cater to your clients, and you have to, you know, you can't say anything that your clients would not want to be associated with.
There have been times, like, not just on the podcast or other times, where I've thought to myself, hey, that would be a really funny story, but I'm not going to share that because it's over the line. You know, like, I sort of see what you mean. It's in a different context and it's magnified, but I mean, there are like certain words that we don't use that are specifically taboo within our space, you know, and like there are a lot of things that we say that are offensive, but there are just like rape is the classic one. Gamers used to use that all the time. Every Dota match you go in, we're going to rape this guy mid. I'm going to rape the off lane. It was just like the go-to word for I'm going to shut this guy down. I'm going to win. And now almost no one says it. Like it's probably like 1 in 50 games for me that I hear that word, like literally. You know, and nobody even says it jokingly off camera that much anymore. A couple people still use it. But, you know, there are just certain words like that that are just kind of taboo that if I were to use them a lot just in a public setting, it would probably not be great for my likelihood of getting future gigs, you know. And it's, you know, it's picking and choosing. I don't know that how we've decided which things are completely over the line and certain things that aren't. But, you know, it's... So anyway, yeah, it was a long-winded way to say, I guess I sort of do know what you're saying, that it's not about individual words, but there's a line that you can cross from any kind of public perspective, regardless of what your job is, I guess.
Yeah. And I think also that it will be slightly different for some people. Some people are just held more accountable, more closely to their employers than others.
Yeah.
And part of the reason for that is, you know, so for instance, I want to be a life coach one day. That's one of my goals. And I might never get it. I might change my mind. But one of the things is that might be different is I'll have a bunch of different clients, and you know I might have more opportunity to pick people who will be specifically totally fine with me talking about whatever I want. And part of the reason is they're those people too. And what a great way to pick a client. What a great way to start a relationship with a person. You connect with them over being able to say whatever you want. So that's not my reality at all. Like that's like to think of that even as an imaginable picture of someday, and then compare that to what I have now is there's no comparison. I don't have that relationship at all with my employers, and you know then that's fine. That's their prerogative.
Well, Trent, you had a real job once, right?
Trent, yeah, what you were gonna say something?
Yeah, I've had real jobs before. Who wants a real job?
Well, but I mean,
those are awful.
Was that ever a thing? Like, where was it? Norton? Is that where you used to work?
What? Well, I worked for an agency that did like sales.
Did they have social media restrictions? Like, who was it? I was talking to somebody the other day about how a lot of game developers are like that, where the social media restrictions are ridiculously insane. You know, you can get fired for just saying, like, acknowledging that another game exists and doesn't suck. It can be a fireable offense if you work for a game developer, you know? Like,
yeah, I've heard about that stuff for like EA and stuff like that. Like,
yeah,
that
like
kind
if
of
you
stuff
work at
where,
Blizzard, you can only publicly talk about Blizzard games and only positively. You know, you can't say anything about
kind of
Blizzard bugs. You can't be like, oh man, Dota, the new Dota patch is out. I can't wait to play it. Like that's a big fucking deal, you know? Completely different context, but along the lines of what we're talking about.
I mean, have you heard about how many people received direct messages from IceFrog to stop slamming patches?
No. Well,
IceFrog got upset.
I didn't slam any patches, I guess, because I don't think I got a DM.
I don't want to. Well, I'll say certain pro players made tweets saying they weren't happy about the patch or they hated the patch, and they received direct messages from IceFrog asking them to delete the tweets, and so did certain personalities.
Wow. Interesting.
Yeah, he was upset. He was like, man, could you like not slam the patch like that? Like it's just gonna create a negative influence. Like, could you try it out and maybe just like don't instantly tweet out that it's really bad. Like, I'd rather you took some time with it, because he felt like the changes were good.
I mean, that is sort of a fair thing to say.
And that was like this year. That was not long ago.
You know, that's totally different from, you know, obviously it's a different arrangement. None of them are employed by Valve or anything. But I feel like that is reasonable. Like, hey, man, we're kind of all in this thing together. If you really don't like it after you play it for a couple weeks, let me know and let's see if we can exchange notes. But there's very little value added by prejudging it so harshly and negatively, because it's just going to create
and that's what he was saying.
I think that's a fair assessment. I don't know. I don't see anything wrong with that.
It is interesting, though. I never would have thought that would happen in Dota, though.
Yeah.
Especially from IceFrog, of all people. But
well, I think a request is different from a demand. You know, just saying, like, hey, man, just so you know.
Well, if it's IceFrog, is it a request?
Well, I see what you mean. He's such a big influencer that it is a little bit of a demand. But
he knows you're going to do whatever he says.
But still, I mean, it's in some ways, you never know what people really know. You know, like when people tweet things like that, sometimes it's just a moment of rage that you're letting out. You could even be mad about something else, and then that is just the thing that triggers you to do something public. I don't know. It can be helpful sometimes. It's a sign of respect in my book if someone's willing to be like, hey, dude, just so you know, this is kind of a deal for me, you know, instead of just letting it fester and staying quiet. I can respect that, you know. It's
yeah.
Communication's important, Trent. You know.
Well, what I was going to point out was I thought it was really interesting that the idea of being a life coach, because I'd never really considered that, because obviously you're educated in philosophy and stuff, but that's like, because when I first started hearing about life coaching, it was like probably like, oh God, I guess it'd be like 8 years ago or something. My friend, my roommate and guy who I grew up with, his girlfriend who'd been going with for a long time, her mom was a life coach. I never heard of that before. Because I grew up in the middle of the fucking woods. I never heard of any of this shit. And I guess, and her job was that there were people who felt like there were problems in their lives or they wanted self-betterment, and she would help them. Now, mind you, I think she was a bit of a fraud. I don't personally, she had no formal education whatsoever. I'm pretty sure she was into the chakras and that kind of shit. So I'm not equating you to that. But I like the idea of someone who is an actual philosophical, like, education. Like, I think that'd be really cool. It's like, I guess low-key therapy, if that makes sense. It's kind of like analysis and trying to like improve yourself and discussing with someone and just talking about like wider range. Man, we could go for a little bit of that. Could we get down for some taxpayer money for that?
I mean, isn't it a little bit like, I mean, this isn't always the case. I'm probably doing broad strokes, but therapy is a little bit more like I'm having an issue and I need to get to okay. And a life coach is more like I'm kind of okay, but I want to get to better. You know, it's like unlocking that next level. Is that fair, Dylan? Is that a good way to describe it, or is that too reductional?
I'm not a life coach yet. Yeah. I've done some studying.
Well, just in general, though, for those who don't know what
I'll give you what I can. I have experience with the psychiatric industry for a variety of reasons, and there's a wide range of people who attend psychiatry and who try and seek counsel from people with psychological backgrounds. But I think you're probably right that most of the people, or a lot of the people who are doing that because they want to get better. They want to heal.
Yeah.
Here's an interesting little philosophical distinction. You have to ask the question, what does it mean to get better? Because it's funny, both of the disciplines utilize the exact same word. Both life coaching and psychologists, psychiatrists say, you're coming to me to get better.
Yeah.
So it's interesting, like, what does that mean?
Right,
yeah. To get better?
Yeah.
You know, so people will be, my main pitch, I think, and I'm going to throw another disclaimer on this because I don't really know a whole lot about this. I know what I've experienced personally through psychiatry. I don't know any statistics on it. I haven't read about it in any relevant way, and I'm not a life coach. I've never been a professional life coach.
Sounds like a lot of responsibility.
Yeah, indeed. You definitely. Yeah, I mean, I can talk about that a little bit. But so one thing I'll just say is people are coming at both of these industries from a variety of places, and you might be surprised to see how many people who are in life coaching, who are people who they are. They're a wreck, kind of like their life isn't going the way they want it to, and a life coach might say to them, "Oh, your life's not a wreck. It's just a bunch of problems that you have to solve, and I'm here for you." So I think the key difference between a life coach, from what I understand, and a psychiatrist is that a life coach is someone that is going to go out with you and show you how to do these things. They're going to try and keep you accountable in a really direct way, you know? They're going to make suggestions, but here's the thing. Ultimately, the philosophy of most life coaching that I've surveyed is that you are the agent who is best capable of assessing your needs. And not only that, you're also the agent who is best capable of solving the problems that are getting between you and those needs.
It's like a mental personal trainer.
Yeah,
it's sort of like that.
Okay.
Yeah, it's what it's. So here, so when I was interviewing with, or I was getting informational interviews with a life coaching school that I was looking at, the woman told me that we're just here to sort of let you be the platform for your own ideas. We're not going to give you ideas. Consultants give you ideas. That's what a consultant's job is. A consultant is someone you hire who's an expert in some field. They know way more than you do. let's say for some reason you need someone who knows a lot about the military because you're trying to hire a military contractor to do something for you, to do something for your company,
like
maybe to provide security. Yeah, exactly.
Well,
you know nothing about it because you're
more about life coaching in like a corporate context. There's a lady from like friend of my ex-girlfriend 2 exes ago, very disconnected. But this lady that she was sort of a life coach and sort of did these kind of like weird magic tricks, like mind expanding show things. But where she made most of her money was going into corporate offices and doing team building and kind of life coaching, but hired by a company to do it, you know, either as like a one-off or for a series of like retreats, or as like an in-office, like you're here for a month and you're going to help us kind of build our workflow and improve communications and general morale around the office. But maybe that's just because I'm biased towards business stuff. And to me, that's like, wow, you can actually make money doing that. You just go into an office of people that work in cubicles and all hate each other and hate their lives and just make them play games and do some trust falls and get some adrenaline pumping, and then they're motivated to work again. That sounds like a fucking awesome job, dude. I could totally get into that.
Yeah,
bring in
I mean, that's definitely part of it.
Fucking hoagies and shit.
Yeah, and some of it's more individual. Some of it's you'll have into it. So I know someone who his life coach is a hypnotherapist. Like he has hypnosis is a huge part of his technique.
I've always
his approach.
wanted to be hypnotized, dude.
Yeah, it's. I mean,
have you done it?
Yeah, I've been hypnotized.
It worked on you?
Yes. So interesting thing about hypnosis is there's 3 different personality types that they characterize you as. So you at least this is how it was explained to me by by a psychiatrist. He said there's Dionysians, they're all Greek gods and goddesses. There's Dionysians, Odysseans, and Athenians. And they're all just so Athenians are people who like Athena, she's very she's the goddess of wisdom in the Greek pantheon. She's very stoic, steadfast, and down to earth. These people are very, very, very hard to hypnotize, if not impossible.
Okay.
Odysseans, or Odysseans, based off of Odysseus, the hero Odysseus from the Greek epics, are in the middle, and then Dionysians and Dionysus. Do you know who Dionysus is?
Yeah, it's one of the girls.
The wine guy, right?
Yes, he's the wine god. So the wine god, the one who has the most fun, has all kinds of like flippy thoughts and crazy things going on. That's the guy who's the most capable of hypnosis, because that's what hypnosis requires. I think it requires some, juju magic sort of belief.
You have to be susceptible. Believe. Yeah, you have to sort of want to be hypnotized.
Yes. Well, that's true for all hypnosis.
Yeah,
that's true for all. It requires a degree of consent.
Yeah.
Or it won't work. It's not hypnosis. Otherwise, it's coercion or this or that. But there are some hypnotic techniques. I'll tell you this story really quick, and then I want to get back onto the social media thingy. But so one of my friends knew a guy who they would go into places, and they'd have a bunch of newspapers in their hands. So they would go into a butcher, for instance, order some meat. I need this, that. A pig, whatever, off the menu, and then could you chop it all up and give it to me? Guy makes the order, He's talking to him the whole time. He's talking to him, and then at the end of the guy gets all the meat together. He puts it on the counter, and they're talking. The person hands him a stack of newspapers, and he goes, "Here you go, thank you so much." Guy looks at it, flips through it, says, "Yep, okay, good," and then bam, he's out the door. I don't know what he did. I wasn't there. I didn't see it myself, but more or less he's directing the guy's attention, and he is getting consent. He's saying, "Here's the money," and the guy's like, "Oh, the money, okay." So that's consent. That's consent right there. Weird. Oh, money, okay. He's accepting that it's money.
Yeah.
That's like as far as I've ever heard of hypnosis
that it's always
going.
Anecdotal, but and like that's the nature of it. Hypnosis has to be anecdotal when you hear these kind of stories, but the cynicist or the cynist or whatever in me hears that and it's just kind of like, yeah, I don't know. that guy sounds like he was taken for a fool or something. I don't know. It sounds fishy is all I can say. You know.
Well, it was fishy.
Well, it is.
That's the point.
I know.
It was very fishy.
Exactly.
He handed him a bunch of newspapers and got meat in return, and he lied to the guy.
But
and told him
I
it was
have
money.
heard of things like that though. It's weird that you can do weird like it's confidence and body language tricks and stuff, and you can kind of do things so quickly and confidently that people that aren't really paying close attention will kind of just. I've seen that trick with blank pieces of paper where they hand them paper and literally just paper instead of money, and then the teller accepts it and they walk out, and then sometimes they come out and sometimes they don't. It's just.
Well, do you think you could do that?
Do you think I could be the one hypnotizing people to believe
Sure.
that my money is paper, or that I would fall victim to that trick?
The person who is pulling off the trick with your current skill set, do you think you could do it?
I don't know. I mean, if it's one of those things that if
no,
someone
no,
describes it to me, I would say no, not really. But having seen videos of it that didn't seem completely fake, I'm kind of like, well, I don't know, maybe if there is a trick to it, and I could learn the trick, then maybe. But I don't know. It just seems so far-fetched and ridiculous to me to even think about really trying something like that without you planting the seed. So I guess the answer is no.
I wouldn't be able to morally do it.
Exactly. I
don't want to trick somebody.
Right now,
I feel bad.
It's a weird concept.
No, there's not a good purpose behind it. No,
I guess.
I agree.
So I guess no, because I guess the core part of me believes that the average person is alert enough in their daily life that they're gonna notice. Yeah, these are just blank pieces of paper, dude. What the fuck are you trying to pull here? Give me some goddamn money.
Well, you might be surprised how easy it is to divert people's attention.
Well, I
went
to the Apple store the other day, and it was seriously a shock of. Most of the people there were not having problems related to Apple. One guy couldn't figure out how to sign into Skype, and then he asked the Apple genius how to find the ID number associated with his email. He said, all I do is YouTube. I don't do any of that complicated stuff like email. I was just like, this is the general populace. These are just the average people that we're marketing to. They come in, your Apple ID, and they're just like, my Apple ID? Oh my God, I had no idea I would need that. Well, any idea what the password is? Let me call Richard. He's going to call David. We're going to see if they can find it in the notebook that's stashed under the keyboard of our aunt's. It's ridiculous, dude. People can't even remember passwords. That is a novel concept to old people. So, given that context, I could see how it would work. People are weird, man. What is that? It's like the Jedi mind tricks only work on the weak-minded, like the stormtroopers and shit.
So, have either of you guys ever seen Louis C.K.?
Yeah.
Yep.
I've seen a lot of his stand-up.
Do you know the bit where he says the N-word on stage and as part of his joke?
Yeah.
Is it the one where he's talking about the news and how they say the N-word and then that makes him say it in his head because it's by saying the N-word, it's the concept that's offensive, not the actual word, and saying that is just as bad, and it's worse because now I'm saying it to myself instead of you just saying it. Yeah,
that's what saying a word is. Yeah,
I've seen
that's the whole bit. So when I watched Louis C.K. when I watch Louis C.K. when I watch anybody who says something controversial, that's something that I might in one context, very very precise context, like a comedy show or something like that, I'd want to say a word, I would want to say a taboo word, but I. On my own, and I don't know if either of you have experienced this yourselves, but I find it to be a generally relatable thing. I'm afraid. I'm scared. I don't want to, invoke the wrath of the taboo guardians.
It depends on the word, because we say a lot of really offensive.
I'll let you do that. Let me just get through this. So when I saw Louis C.K., that was a huge breakout for me. Not just because I liked his comedy, not just because I thought it was really funny. It made me feel like I could say those things. It made me feel like, oh, you can say things that not necessarily like the N-word, but oh, I've been wanting to say this thing that's been on my chest forever, but I know that my mom or this person that I'm having an argument with or this person or that person they're going to be giving me huge blowback. And obviously, the more specific the content, if the content of the person is about your mom and how to talk to her, it's going to be more impressive and it's going to be more, it's going to affect you more. But the point is that I was in the closet before, sort of. I was in the closet, or I was deeper in the closet. As soon as he said that stuff, as soon as I saw an example of a person who was able to say it successfully. He didn't just say it. He didn't say it and then get like shot. He didn't say it and then get have a bunch of people like yell at him and say, "Oh my God, you should never say something like that."
Right.
That didn't happen. He got uproarious applause, and he's made presumably lots of money off of that show, etc.
Yeah.
So whenever I see something like that, I'm a little bit further out of the closet.
Well,
and it makes me feel a little bit, to use a very weird word that I think some political sides use. It emboldened me. It made me feel like, emboldened. It's really.
Word.
I think it's extremely pretentious word, but it's also apt too. They use it for a reason.
We're probably...
it made me feel more bold, more able to do that. So what I'm saying with this social media stuff is, when you're debating somebody, when you're talking to someone and you're saying things that are controversial. One of my posts recently was, I don't think mass shootings should be on national news. National shootings are not newsworthy material.
Is that even a
one of the reasons
statement,
why?
Though? Isn't that like... I think a lot of people agree with that.
Well, maybe, but and that's a good point. What is controversial to some people is obviously not to others, but there are people on my feed for which it is very controversial, and I know that. Yes, and the reason I know that is because they told me on my feed. They commented and they were arguing with me for at length.
That's
and I
a
have the
weird thing to defend. No, I think school shooters should be plastered everywhere. Like, that is such a weird stance.
It's because I think the way they see it is this is a bad thing that's happening, and it's happening because of the reasons that I think. And the reason I think it's happening is because there's not enough guns, and there's not like they try and use why it's happening to put their own ideas
to further
forward.
their agenda. Yeah.
Whereas
and both
for
sides
us,
use
I'm
it too.
assuming many of us are saying, oh, they shouldn't be plastered everywhere because it's going to promote other people to do it. And why don't we just get rid of those guns, something like that. Like, we need mental health, gun control, blah, blah, blah. And
well, it plants the seed that it's the ultimate way to get attention, to go out with a bang, so to speak. And when you give it this crazy, grandiose coverage, though, you can also make the same case that, like, flashback to Columbine days. That shit was covered, like, ridiculously. I mean, the entire country was in mourning for weeks.
Well, that's different, in my opinion, because Columbine was a very, it was somewhat of a novel experience.
Right, but I don't know that
it was
you can,
somewhat, it was
based on that,
startling.
It's hard to say that publicizing it leads to more, because there weren't a lot more directly after Columbine. There was a big lag time before this mass
My
shooting
argument
trend
isn't about whether it leads to more, and I think that's part of it. I think that's it's whether or not it's newsworthy. Like, I think that's fair. I don't know whether or not it leads to more. What I do know is that it's not newsworthy. Like, it's not, because I have a different and some people will argue what is newsworthy, etc. Yeah, I don't think it's newsworthy because there have been less than 300 deaths far less than 300 deaths. It's around that. I've looked up the numbers and I just sort of rounded it, based on the statistics that I read.
Yeah.
Over school shootings over the past 5 years.
Yeah.
That's such a tiny statistically.
No, it's like the 10-to-1 rule.
Like, every death is a tragedy, but my post said school shootings are tragedies. They're not calamities. There's a difference. A tragedy is personal. It's something that happens to you. If my best friend died, if Mike died, that would be a tragedy. That would not be news.
Right.
It would not be new. Like, no one would need to know except for me and anybody else who was directly relevant to.
And the thing
and if we posted every fucking tragedy, on the
That's
news,
an
then we
analogy.
would.
That's a cool way to frame it.
Well, the other way that you think about it too is everyone in chat is like, only 300 too many. Well, yeah, no shit. But how has it impacted your life? How does that, like, me, for example, I hear about all of these mass shootings. I live in fucking Nova Scotia, Canada. Do I know what the budget is for next year and if anyone's going to pay for that new ferry terminal that could help bring more business into my city? I don't. I heard about it like 4 years ago, but that has a way bigger impact on my life than these fucking shootings down in the States. But I don't get that news. And it's partially because it's not being sent to me as it's like being blasted everywhere like these shootings. And part of it's because I'm just not like that inclined, I guess, because
you've got other
things
to
doesn't
take
seem
care
interesting compared to things like, wow, all those people died. That's crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes.
Like, we're not saying it's not sad and it's not a tragedy, but it's like, is it really going to change your life? Like, should you really be that concerned? Like, for example, I see 300 too many from Drag and Drop Dota. Dude, you live in fucking Germany. Like, I know it's sad, but you've heard about all this shit, man. But is it really that relevant to your life? That's what's so crazy about it. Like, what about the 300 people that just died in like Syria this morning? Like,
and
it was probably a lot sadder.
I understand having a degree of not even just a degree, but some amount of empathy for other people's problems. Like, because other people inevitably affect your life and you affect their life. We are an interconnected society. You know, we're social animals.
I mean,
so that's fair. Like, I don't want to like, I don't want to throw that out. You know, I think that we should have that.
Well, there is like a weird fallacy that people use lurking here of the idea of like ranking problems, like by saying that your issue, you're an idiot for saying this is a big issue. Like, how can you care about, you know, dogs and the ethical treatment about dogs when people are dying in Syria? And it's like, well, they're both problems and we should deal with both. But I'm just passionate about this particular issue because of, you know, whatever anecdotal reason. But people throw that around a lot of sort of like comparing things that you're upset about, of like, well, this is a way bigger deal than what you're talking about, you know?
Right, and a lot of that comes down to
that's a fallacy,
perspective, right, and emotional investment.
They're not mutually exclusive. You can have two problems that are unrelated that are both important, you know. And
you can, but here it's interesting though, because I think what you just mentioned is the other side of that argument is partially true. Like, you do have to prioritize certain things. And I think that, Trent, you said that. You mentioned priorities like way earlier in the podcast, and that's something that that resonates with me very strongly. Like, I think what, you know, people I think if people aren't taking care of what's going on in front of their own lives, then how do they have any justification for saying they should have any say in what is going on in other people's lives that does not affect them? That, you know, and here's the thing: the phrase "does not affect them" is not a completely accurate phrase. To add some analytical, philosophical nuance to it, it does affect you.
Well, yeah,
it can affect you.
We're all a system.
It might affect you. It could have some long-term effects that you're not really sure about. But I think, like, what's more important to you? The things that are going on directly around you and in your life, or things that are, you know, miles away.
Speaking of things that are right next door, dude, did you see, you know, Dylan's in New Jersey, where I used to come from, and they just introduced a bill in New Jersey that makes it more difficult to get exemptions for vaccines based on religious standing. And there are a bunch of headlines of they had like a town hall thing, and there is a huge uproar. Like, all the anti-vaxxers showed up, and they brought their kids, and they got their kids to throw things and yell things. It was this really big commotion and stuff. But Jesus, dude, only in America, I think. Do you guys have that shit in Canada, Trent? Do you guys have an anti-vaxxer movement?
Oh, we have the same shit, but everything's just smaller. Right?
It's all scaled down.
Yeah, it's not. I wouldn't say I've ever seen a rally for it, but the same kind of things exist. You can find the same communities in your local Facebook group. You know, you can join up with the same people with the same idiotic ideas on just about anything via the internet. So every community is going to have the same shit. It basically just comes down to the same percent of the population or whatever.
I guess I don't know why I was shocked, you know, because I know that the anti-vaxxers, it's still a movement and it's going strong, and, you know, there's all this misinformation and propaganda out there, and a lot of people are really bad at telling real information from misinformation. But it was just very jarring to see that kind of headline of, like, you know, we're taking steps to move towards herd immunity for some of these things that are coming back, and to see people just literally throw a temper tantrum about it was very, very jarring. It -1 for humanity for me right there, you know?
Right. So I can't remember what I was in the middle of something and you interrupted me, Andrew. And I totally forgot what I was talking about. What was I saying? I was saying something. Totally off of
it. We were on to the whole idea of just like priorities and what's important in your life.
Prioritizing things, like how I said something about how, like, you know, it's
before that.
You can't
before that
prioritize stuff. Facebook stuff.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah. All right. So can I get back to the Facebook stuff, Andrew? Okay. Cool. So I was talking about sort of coming out of the closet and feeling more empowered. That's a really good word for it. I felt more empowered when I saw Louis C.K. talking about that.
Oh, yeah.
When I see Jordan Peterson talking about the things that he does. Anytime I see somebody that says something that sort of evokes, it might not even. So the cool thing is, it might not even be an opinion that I thought that I had. You know, it might have just been sort of like a nascent feeling that was tied up in my chest, and I didn't know how to express it because I didn't have any words for it. But seeing someone say something bursts it out. And that's so if you're like really skeptical about Facebook and the ability to change people's minds and debates, especially public debates, because that's what Facebook is. It's a public debate. Always. You post something, everyone.
It's public-ish. It's public within your own echo chamber.
Yes. Well, it's public within your own friend group.
Yeah.
I guess I can see how public isn't exactly the right term. Because it is, because I know what you're saying, because it's public,
right.
but it's also not like, what I guess,
large
open
scale,
forum. It's not an open forum.
It's not public the way
Yes.
this is, right? This is public in the sense that literally anyone without a login can go and watch this episode on YouTube for free or download the audio and listen to it.
Nobody without a computer cannot watch this.
But it's public. Like Facebook.
No, it's not.
Facebook is inherently private compared to
It's not public.
This.
No, it's not public. If you don't have a Twitch account or you don't know how to get to this,
well,
okay, you need to know that this exists.
Well, sure. That's not a defining. It's freely accessible to any. You're right. It is a digital medium. Not having the internet is a limitation. So that's like saying like newspapers aren't public if you can't read them. Some people can't read a newspaper. It's still public information.
My point is that it's not just you and the person.
Well, but
talking.
no one,
there are people watching.
one, or not everyone can just go to your Facebook and read all the comments you put on stuff. Facebook has privacy.
Not everyone. That's my point. Okay, that's fine, Andrew. But not everyone can access everything that you're talking about for a variety.
Well, but
of
how can you call Facebook public, but a podcast like this not public?
I was trying to be rhetorical. It is public. It's just a different gradient of public.
Well, I don't know. Facebook is like it's locked behind the wall of your network. That's what makes it an echo chamber in a lot of cases. You know?
Okay, well, this is locked behind the wall of your network, Andrew. Who is going to watch this that isn't a Zyori fan?
Well, but it's not locked though. Anybody can. Anybody watching right now can take this video and post it or share it wherever.
I guess
want.
the difference is you need permission to access your feed, whereas you don't technically need permission. It's just a different set of.
If I'm friends with you on Facebook, I can't just copy a link to one of your posts and send it to Trent, who doesn't use Facebook.
Listen, I'm sorry.
You know?
I'm sorry. I don't want to get caught up on like the definition of public versus the definition of what isn't public.
Okay.
So here I'll clarify. I'm sorry. It's something where you're saying it and you have peers. You have people who can observe it.
You have a network.
It's always observable. I use the word public because it's one word and it's quick. But like another word could be it's within a network. You get the point. There's lots of people watching.
Right.
And that's not obvious. The reason I wanted to say is it's not obvious because sometimes it seems like you're just talking to one person. And a lot of times that's what it is, and that's one of the criticisms. It's like, oh my God, you're just going back and forth. You said this, they countered.
It's
countered,
like a new agey
forum,
and
it went back and forth, and then nothing happened. Like neither of you changed your minds or anything like that. And well, maybe, but you might be speaking to an audience who you don't even realize is watching.
You're talking about like lurkers, like the people that are reading your conversation but not liking or engaging at all, and you don't even know that anyone else is reading it, but all of your mutual friends in the network could potentially be looking at that conversation.
Yes.
Right.
Consider this. Consider that let's say you have a political idea and you really like it and you think it's very resonant and you think you can articulate it well. You might post it and not get a single like. And you might have, like what you said, lurkers. You might post it and you might get a person who says, no, that's wrong. And you debate with them. But you still don't get any likes. You don't get any, as far as you don't know that anybody's watching it. You can go down the line and add more and more people to this kind of experience. So what's happened to me is people are emboldened by what I say. They come out of the woodwork. These are people I talk to in real life sometimes. Sometimes it's people I haven't talked to in forever, and I would have never guessed that they think X or Y or Z, But now, and sometimes the reverse happens. Yeah. If I see somebody else post something like that, then I'm like, oh my God, they're talking about it. that's awesome. I can talk about it now.
I guess.
And so that's the effect that I'm talking about. And that's what I've been having on Facebook. And I have at least 2 dozen, 3 dozen conversations recorded that, at anyone's leisure, I could, release with, hiding the names, obviously, and protecting people's identities, and show you the kinds of things that will happen when you just sort of say the truth. Say what you think is real. Say what you think is good and relevant and worthwhile, and then see what happens. Just sort of be and engage the people.
I find it interesting that we've had completely black and white different experiences with Facebook, because I feel I couldn't feel more opposite about like people coming out of the woodwork and stuff. Like, maybe I think some of the digression is Facebook, like Netflix, is a unique user experience, right? Like the people you add on Facebook are much different than the people that I add on Facebook, right? So maybe your network is much more tuned to being open-minded, actually reading things, actually acknowledging a proper discourse, and then chiming in with like, hey man, I'm really glad that you said that. And the people I've added on Facebook are just a bunch of assholes that want to meme and yell at each other, right? And that's totally possible because Facebook is not a ubiquitous experience. And that's what I was getting at with the public thing. It's private in the sense that my network, outside of a little bit of overlap, is totally different from yours. And that totally changes what I see on my feed and the kind of garbage that gets mine is mostly just lame political memes and people making really ultimately like racist and inappropriate comments that I can't believe that they post on a quote-unquote public forum. The kind of stuff, like, it seems like Facebook is the only place where you can post really offensive, weird, like what I would call alt-right type things and have people circle jerk about it. And like any other medium or conversation, people will be like, dude, that's just like offensive, Like, I see things pop up on my feed about, like, kill the queers occasionally, and it's just like, I don't know if this is a joke or not, but why is this here? Like, what are you doing? Why would you share this? Why would you share this on any, like, if we were at a cocktail party, you wouldn't bring this up. Why are you posting it on Facebook? That's what I see on my feed. And when the few times I have tried to chime in, I use the word echo chamber because that's what it feels like. I see people preaching to their audience that already agree with them, and then just kind of it's like
there's lots of that.
A magnified version of Reddit, And,
I mean, that's all we are here too, right? Like, the only people who listen to this podcast are people that like us for the most part.
Well, yes, I guess, but
like anyone who's like, fuck, I hate Andrew and Trent.
But we're not doing it for validation, right? We're not putting our opinions out there so that Twitch chat or YouTube comments will validate us, and we can be like, yeah, see, look, those guys fucking agree with us too. We're doing it because we're either trying to be entertaining or share opinions or perspective. We're like, our goal is not the same as people posting on Facebook with, you post a charged thing with an intention, either to rile up the opposition or to rally your peers, and that's mostly what my feed is. It is the manifestation of the extremes on both sides.
Is the internet ever not an echo chamber? When is it not?
Well, that's a little.
I mean, when you have people who are open-minded, who might disagree with you.
What you do is basically the most open thing that I kind of, because when I think about a lot of the internet is compartmentalized, so it's like if I go on Reddit, I'm going to a place that largely has a pretty uniform opinion. For example, actually, this is kind of interesting because one place that I see the most arguing is actually the hockey subreddit, but it has nothing to do with hockey. Okay, so this is what happens every time. So if you think about hockey fans, for the most part, it's Canada, obviously, especially on an English-based board. One thing that will happen in these hockey threads, though, is someone will mention Justin Trudeau, or someone will mention Donald Trump, and the place goes to fucking shit. Like, any comment thread where anything political is mentioned, suddenly the whole thread is useless. You can't use any of the subreddit at that point. The whole that thread is gone. It's worthless. And yet, throughout the rest of the day, there'll be like 200 other threads that are fully functional and lighthearted and fun. But these people all have this one thing in common. They have that little hockey echo chamber. But the second that anything is poked or prodded in there that they can't all perfectly relate to like that, it literally explodes.
That's really
which is kind of crazy that we're so like, I don't know, we can't discuss that kind of stuff.
So let me pose a question in your direction, Dylan. Right now, first of all, do you agree with this premise that this is one of the most polarized times we've had in like recent history? By I mean the standards of our lifetime. Like I feel like since I've been alive, this has been the craziest of so few people in the middle, and people are the divide is so deep between left and right.
Isn't that just the media making you think that,
Well,
though? Don't you think it was the exact same way during 9/11, but you just couldn't appreciate it
no.
because you were younger?
No,
We
no
were
way.
way more unified during 9/11.
Way more unified, absolutely. And Bush was
Absolutely.
much
That's why
different
the
from
war
Trump.
had such a huge
Bush respected the
rating at
office.
first.
I think Bush played politics a lot less than Trump did, which is a crazy thing to say. But at that time, it was just unified. It was everybody.
Yeah, but
we're working.
You
together.
have that context with Trump. Do you really think? Don't you remember? Everyone hated Bush. That's like everything I saw in the news.
Right, but they
like,
hated
at
him because
least-
he was stupid,
they
not
did.
because he was a Republican.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that was their jive, was that he was stupid.
Yes,
So
right.
that-
But like, it's a different.
But it was.
I think it's different layers. But anyway, my broader question is more.
Trent, I think you're right. Things have always been polarized. I think they seem particularly more polarized now, and it's also there's a degree of emotional investment that you'll find in a lot of camps that on both sides that was not present during.
And I would agree that Trump plays the emotion card, right?
Yeah.
Bush, to my knowledge, at least from what I've seen, he didn't do that same way where. Like, Trump will openly say fake news. Like, that's not something Bush ever would have done. He never would have called out a news station like CNN and say, you're garbage, whereas Fox is amazing.
Yeah.
Like, that's a very new thing. It's very ethic breaching, I'm sure, but somehow keeps happening.
And I think people have also gotten angrier over the last decade and a half because, you know, that whole, like, shrinking middle class, you know, the poverty line kind of rising, all that kind of stuff. People in that middle class, especially a lot of millennials and stuff, are squeezed more now than they were then. You know, a lot of people working 40 hours a week and barely breaking even or ends meet or whatever. We have this growing problem, and I think that is the foundation of why things are so polarized right now, because people are fucking angry. You know, when you're comfortable, you're not that angry. But when you're working your ass off and you feel like you're not making any headway and you're working a job that has nothing to do with your degree because you graduated during the recession, you're fucking angry, dude, and you want somebody to change something, and that gets manifested in a weird way. And I think that's why I think it's a little bit more polarized, not just because of the media, but people are just they want things to work differently.
People
but they don't know
are much
how.
more the media. Like a lot, like
healthcare.
Media is much more accessible from a like megaphone point of view now than it was 10 years ago.
That's very
you know, there are these people that
very true
shouldn't have an opinion publicly broadcast that can do it now in a sense, right?
Yeah.
No,
I mean, that's a very real thing. Like, why am I here? You know, who am I? I'm kind of, you know, I don't know that much, but you guys are listening to me. 10 years ago, someone like me probably wouldn't have an outlet like this.
Yeah, I definitely see what you're saying. I think healthcare is another example, right? That's something that a decade and a half ago was not nearly as expensive as it is now. And as an individual, like seeing the premiums go up and seeing how much I pay for what I get out of the healthcare system, it's a drain. You know, it is a drain on my income, and for a lot of other people, it's an impossible decision to make of, do I go without coverage or do I pay for coverage I can't afford? That's something Trent can't even empathize with, because in a lot of other countries, that's not a decision you have to fucking make. It's made for you. It's built into the system, and you can just get access to medication and healthcare as you need it. So there are just a lot more things now that are, you know, politically motivated that are affecting people's lives day to day compared to 9/11. I think that are adding to that polarization. You know, when you're seeing that money come out of your account because of healthcare, it makes you do that kind of, I either want socialized healthcare or I fucking hate this and want whatever the Republicans want for no health care. I don't know what their current stance is, but I know they don't like it. But yeah, how do we start taking steps in the opposite direction? Because that is my question that I have not been able to answer. When I see people on Facebook and stuff, how do we start, even outside of Facebook, how do you start getting the conversation to come back more towards the middle and be less focused around the divide, you know?
Learn about the other side.
Oh,
That's learn about the other side. Find out that they're not monsters, because that's what we're making each other out to be. That's what one side of the spectrum and the other side of the spectrum. I mean, I think that some people are doing it more than others, but it's happening. You know, it's really happening, and it's only, in my opinion, and I've seen the regression. So I'll tell you a little bit. I think in general the left is making things, they're just blowing up the other side. Like and the treatment of Trump versus the treatment of Trump by leftists versus the treatment by Obama. And by the way, I didn't, you know, like I wasn't very politically active during either of these elections. More so now, but during Obama and Bush, barely at all.
Right.
The treatment of Bush versus Obama was just totally different. And then now you add Trump, it's Sort of, but I mean, if you said that, then it would detract from the fact that it truly is black and white with Obama and Trump. Like the difference between how Republicans or people on the right responded to Obama's presidency versus how people on the left. Now that's a generalization. I'm not trying to say everybody on the left or anything like that, but I do think that it happened more.
Yeah.
It was more. It was more. It was louder. It was more energetic. It was more crass. It attacked his personal character more than anybody attacked.
But doesn't
Obama's.
he have a personal character worth being attacked?
I don't know. I mean, maybe yes. Certainly, there are aspects of his personal character I think are worth attacking and worth. No, here's the thing. I think there are facets of his personal character that it's perfectly legitimate to criticize and
Right.
to bring into light. I don't think that's always what's happening. I think a lot of it is attacking, and I do draw a distinction between this. If someone is attacking someone,
Yeah, I think
it's often a lot.
I mean,
more,
I also don't subscribe to Fox News, or I don't listen to their things, so I don't really understand like all the things they would have said about someone like Obama or anything like that. I mean,
well, precisely, and it's very easy, I think, to demonize the other side if you don't understand them at all.
It's a
and
little
that's what
bit,
I'm trying to do now. Now that
I'm trying to keep my brain cells though, man. I can't listen to Fox News. Fuck.
it's a little equal,
well,
but opposite.
don't waste your. I mean, like, here's the thing. Like, if you don't want to listen to Fox News, then that's fine. Like, you don't. I mean, I'm ultimately gonna say, if you don't want to be involved in politics, that's also fine. Because I think that politics is foisted on us in a way that's not fair to us. Because it's not fair for people to try and understand gun control, to try and understand immigration, to try and understand economics, foreign policy, and have a life, have a social life, have friends,
Yeah.
have a child, move into a new house.
That's why we're supposed to
That's not
elect
fair.
smart people
It's
to make
not-
those decisions for us, but we keep electing all these fucking dummies into Congress that don't know what the hell.
No,
is
we
going on.
don't.
Oh,
No, we
yes,
don't. We elect some of the smartest people in the country.
Some of them. Some of
No.
those Midwest states.
No, almost all of them.
Bring in some people that have very questionable. I don't know. I guess I'm bringing up the people that don't separate church and state. I look at that as a big deal, And
Of course, that seems dumb to you, but it depends on what you mean by dumb. Because
I mean,
the kinds of people who get filtered up through
educated
politics, doesn't matter how educated they are. It matters depends on what your metric for intelligence is. If you want to filter through these people and ask what their IQs are and ask how conscientious they are, it's a big five. There's a personality metric called the big five, and conscientiousness rates how orderly you are, how organized you are, how motivated you are, how industrious you are. And then it also has a metric for IQ and intelligence, which is a huge predictor for success.
Yeah.
And a huge predictor for aptitude and things like that.
Dumb is a weird catch-all word, right? That doesn't necessarily apply. Like I hate it when people talk about how dumb Trump is, because like he's dumb in some regards, but a lot of it is like a character, and a lot of it is this. He's good at some things, right? He's obviously very good at making money. He's good at gaming the system. He's good at, quote, playing the game. He's good at presenting himself in this light of success no matter what's happening. And that is a skill. And you can call it a damnable skill that makes you sort of a con man, but it's a skill nonetheless that most of us can't really reproduce the same way he does. So,
and that's why he's the president.
Sure.
That's why he won the election.
Dumb is sort of a weird.
He can have dumb policies. He can have.
Right.
He could be dumb himself. He's not.
Well, I think that's what happens with a lot of Congress. Those people are smart in the way they're good at selling themselves, but I don't know that they're the right people to really make public policy.
Is intelligence really the issue, or is it more of like what their own moral if these people were more ethical and had like maybe a higher moral conscience in some regards, then isn't that the thing that would save everything? Not if they're dumb or stupid.
Well, but also some things are difficult though, like net neutrality, right? That's an example of something I don't think the majority of Congress really understands the full scope of net neutrality and the nuances of what not having net neutrality can mean. And now it's on the states to figure out how to maintain some semblance of net neutrality. I don't know that, right? That is my assumption, but it's such a big deal, and it just seems like something that has been passed over, that is just one of those internet things that people around that age group don't intuitively understand that well. And that's where I think of a degree of intelligence. You need to be able to learn and keep up with the times. And as we are getting into this more and more technologically driven era, it's scary to have people in legislative control that don't necessarily understand that technology. How many computer science minors do we have in Congress?
Well, yes,
fucking zero.
That's
what
point.
I mean.
The point is that even when we elect people who are really smart, as you said, it's an insane feat. It's a Herculean feat for them even to try and understand all of these issues, each of which you can write, and not only can you write, there have been volumes of information created about these different topics. And you can be a historian, a true historian, and being a historian even usually means that you have a niche, you have an area in which that you are well versed. Even being a historian does not make you a master of history. Okay, you can't possibly know every single fact. You can't possibly know every single little thing that might be relevant or might not be. Why would you be expected to? You know, why would you be expected to know everything that you might need to know about the gun control debate? It's not a simple topic, okay? And it's something people devote their lives to, their whole life, and they still don't really understand it. And they admit it. Like, you know, I'm reading a book right now on gun control, and the first part of the book was just her explaining how tricky it is to understand statistics and sort them out and still try and find discernible evidence that supports or denies any of the claims.
Yeah. Right.
It's, you know, like,
it's true.
So, and she's brilliant. This woman has 7 books, and she's probably going to make more before she dies.
Well, yeah.
And you know, she's a person I think who would come right out and say, you know, I've studied a lot. I think I understand more than the average person. You know, I have a lot of legs to stand on. I'm an expert. She was cited in the Heller case, which was a Supreme Court case in the United States recently that verified the individual right of people to bear arms. So people verified it as
that's pretty common
right.
across
and
good
she was cited in that
in general. Is like they tend to say the more I've learned, the more questions I have. You know, like the research is never done. Generally, really smart people say, like, any kind of good scientist like Neil deGrasse Tyson or any of those people, it always starts with, well, I don't really know, you know, or I'm not really a specialist, or, you know, you'd really have to ask somebody who's more involved in that specific category of what we're talking about. And I've just, you know, that what you just described is very common, I think, across researchers. As you start to encompass more and more data, you're like, you know, the more I look at this, the more I realize there's a shitload of shit going on, and it's impossible to peg one thing directly to the other in a lot of cases.
I think it's extremely hard for me lately. The more I learn and the more I debate with people who have different ideas than me, it's extremely hard for me to conscientiously say I'm pro-gun, or I'm anti-gun, or I'm pro this, or I'm pro that, or I'm blah blah blah. Like any of the things that I might say, it's very hard for me to conscientiously say it. One, because of what I just said. I'm not this woman who I'm referencing. I'm not a historian on English gun crimes before and after their gun control legislation. So I don't know that much about it.
Well, it's a fallacy to boil things down to a binary choice. And like the news media does that because it's easy to digest. You're for gun control or you're against it. You're pro-choice or you're pro-life, you know?
Right. And what I'm saying is even more like I have my ideas. If you asked me, I could tell you, yes, I'm pro Second Amendment. I think that the Second Amendment is a good thing, and it's a valuable necessary check on systems of power, including various forms of criminals, including the government, and it's just a thing that you should be allowed to have in your life.
Yeah.
But it's not a very
well, gun control is like as gray area
issue.
As it gets, you know. There's so like even that word gun control can mean so many different things. It can be as simple as limiting magazines. It can be as complicated as, you know, every gun requires
Let me just finish real quick, and then you can talk about how gray it is. You're for sure. But I can have that lost my train of thought completely. What were you saying? Go ahead. What were you saying then? Like,
well, just like, I mean, it's gun control is just a weird one.
You keep interrupting me, man, and it's like it's killing me. Like I'm losing my train of thought like mad.
You got to use less words to get the points out, dude. I get but gun control is like the ultimate gray one of all the issues. Like that one is. It's hard for me to even picture an edge case scenario like no gun control. It's like obviously the answer is somewhere in the middle, and it's just figuring out what makes sense. And with America, the bigger problem is what do we do with all the guns that are out? You know, it's less about restricting people buying new guns and dealing with the guns that are already in circulation because there's so fucking many of them. I don't know what the latest tally is, but we've got to be catching up to you guys, Trent. I mean, I think Canada has a higher gun per capita ratio than America still, but
I think we still used to.
Well, you just have so few people. It's easier, but
it's 300 million
in America. That's how many guns we have.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's gone up quite a bit.
That's a lot. Yeah. A lot of it went up during the Obama presidency. That like the fake guns, the idea of like, oh, he's gonna make guns illegal. We got to buy them up. You know, I think gun sales have been down since Trump came into office because of people aren't afraid of them going away now that he's in power. Sort of that weird inversely proportional kind of relationship.
So,
apparently, according to the last census, you guys are way ahead.
Really? Well, I was saying per capita. You're just looking.
Well, yeah, but per person, yeah, guns per. We're only at 30. I think the old figure was using it was something dumb.
Oh.
Yeah, you guys literally have 101 guns per 100 residents, and we have about 30 now.
Oh my God! Wow.
Ours has plummeted with the faster urbanization of Canada, right? Whereas there's far less rural communities. People are moving to the cities. Like where I grew up, we had 5 guns in a house of 4 people, 5 or 6 guns in a house of 4. No, I guess we had 7 guns. We had 7 guns in a house of 4 people. But I mean, they're hunting guns, they're shotguns, they're older stuff. It's not. Whatever. Well, I don't want to get into all that shit, but with more of the urbanization of Canada, then it's not as big of a deal anymore. Not everyone has a farmhouse with a gun anymore.
Right. Yeah, I guess.
Are there stricter gun laws in the Canadian cities?
Yeah, you have to register everything.
Well, one of the
all
things
guns in Canada are all registered and everything, and then there's checks, and you need you can't even buy a handgun without a license.
That was the thing.
You need a special license to have a handgun.
That jumped out at me because, in America, we think of handguns as at least I do, as kind of like a basic. Well, if you're gonna buy a gun, you start with a handgun. You start with a pistol. And in Canada, it's kind of opposite. Like, well, no, if you're gonna use a gun, you use a rifle or a shotgun for hunting. What the fuck are you gonna do with a pistol? The pistol's only good for shooting other
Pistols
humans.
kill people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
why are you buying a pistol?
It's stricter to buy a pistol in Canada than it is to buy a hunting rifle or a shotgun, right? Isn't that kind of the general?
That's true in the UK as well.
Really?
I mean, long arms. Yeah, long arms. From what I've seen in my brief studies, are generally regulated less than pistols.
I mean, it makes sense. It's just not that. That was one of those moments where I realized I had American bias around that, where I always thought of handguns as the lower tier, but really, hunting gear really makes sense as that basic.
Well, it's a smaller weapon too, so it's sort of intuitive. It's it's a handgun. It's just a little gun, And I grew up playing video games, so I was like, yeah, that's my sidearm.
That's true.
Like, why would you regulate my sidearm more than you regulate my whatever?
That's true.
And now they are talking about regulating assault rifles, but why would you do that before my super good saw or whatever stupid gun I'm using, or M60?
M60.
But that's to corroborate the sort of weird the weird bias that we might have had thinking about it.
I've grown tired of the gray area debates a little bit. I don't mind in one-on-one social settings if somebody has an interesting perspective or really wants to talk about something, but I don't know if I've just gotten jaded or just more tired as I've gotten older, but now when I see people posting bullshit or talking about bullshit, 9 times out of 10, I just disengage because I just feel, it's just not worth it. I just, what? You think whatever bullshit you want to think. I'm going to think whatever bullshit I want to think, and I'm going to go home and play some Dota and think about my own shit. And I just walk away, And when I was younger, I had this thirst, you are wrong, sir, and I am going to show you why you are. And that thirst has left me. Very seldom do I really want to go at it with people.
When's the last time you saw a figurehead change their opinion on something? Is that part of the reason? I can't think of a time. Yeah, I can't think of a figurehead I've ever seen change their mind on something. And then if you respect that figurehead and that's the person you look to for your ideas, so let's say you support some podcast guy and he always talks about guns and how great guns are. If that guy never changes his mind, no one's ever going to convince you as long as you revere that guy in a sense.
Right, yeah. No,
so if you never have a figurehead openly change some shit like that, then you always have someone to say, well, this guy's trying to debate me, but you're wrong because I respect Andrew and he knows all kinds of shit.
Part of the value I've seen in these posts is if people aren't going to change their mind, they're not going to change their mind. But you might not be able to change their mind, but you can certainly change your mind. That's something you can do. You have
Yeah.
control over that. You can think about the issues, and I would never want someone to change their mind to something that isn't, true. But but as a rhetorical technique, it's been very useful on Facebook to I mean, it's been useful in my life, not just Facebook, but someone will say something and we'll get into an argument, blah, 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 blah. And especially if it's someone who's really arguing or debating with me rather than arguing and really like making respectable points. Like I've friended random people who I don't know, like they're friends of friends, and they're commenting and they're making these huge discourses with me,
Yeah.
And so if you respect that person, then
Yeah.
then you'll be more likely to think about their ideas, and that's what I've tried to do. I used to have some really, really hard line ideas on certain things, and man, getting into these debates made me want to reel back a little bit and be like, okay, think about it in a more nuanced way, because I've sort of put myself in an echo chamber. I've sort of allowed the media to influence me. I've become polarized, and I don't like it, and I wanna still, retain my love for the truth and adhering to it, not just buckling to buckle, not just like leaning a little bit more left or leaning a little bit more right just because I think it's like fashionable or will make people happy or it'll make me seem more balanced. I want to do it because it actually is true. And I think that talking to people gives you that, like it gives you an opportunity to see it through their lens. And then when you change your mind and when you say, oh, you are right about that, I'm sorry, I was wrong. Like 3 paragraphs in, I never would have done that before. I never would have done that in Facebook debates. I'd always just like in real debates. Like if someone's, I'd be too embarrassed. Like I'm like, oh my God,
I'm not
in my head, I
embarrassed
might
to be
feel wrong.
That's for sure.
I am embarrassed to be wrong.
So-
I'm absolutely embarrassed. And I'm
What's
getting
kinda funny,
better about
though-
it, but it's been helping me get better is talking to people and saying, you're right.
Right. And we often talk about
Practicing
how when you have this anonymous persona online, for example, let's say you're just a screen name. And a lot of the times we always talk about how people aren't afraid to say what they want and what they truly think because they're on the internet and they're anonymous. But why, with that same logic, are people not willing to admit they're wrong when it's also anonymous? You know what I mean? They're always like, well, yeah, no shit, they're always going to argue because they don't care and like, blah, blah, blah. But you never see something like, yeah, you are right, man. Yeah, good point. Even though I still don't know who the fuck you are.
Yeah.
But like, there's still that, it's like you can't admit it to yourself. It's not a public perception about someone saying you were wrong. It's more about you saying like, no, I must be right.
Yeah,
I can't be right.
It is true. I mean, Trent, I've been thinking about over the last couple of minutes what you said about has anybody that I follow changed their minds, and I'm sure there have been examples of it. But I feel like I follow people that are pretty centrist-y. Like Joe Rogan is probably the influencer I pay attention to the most these days in terms of just consuming raw content, and that's kind of his shtick, right? Like being open-minded, getting different perspectives, and continuing that quest of learning and trying to sort things out and figure them out based on all the data you have available. So. I don't know. I also agree, Dylan, that I do occasionally engage in debate with somebody when I think this person might have a perspective that I could learn from. Like military people are always one that I'm interested to talk to. Like, if I'm at a social gathering and somebody's off duty, just to sort of, I'm always curious to hear about, their motivations of why did you join the military? What were the best parts? What were the worst? Because it's something I have no frame of reference for. My life is so far disconnected from anything like the military where people are telling you what to do and all this kind of stuff. It's very interesting to me. And that's not necessarily a debate, but it's an example of a situation where, it might be somebody who I disagree with on a lot of political stuff, but I'm still really curious to understand their perspective and understand why they think the things that they do,
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, no, I've had similar feelings about people in the military because I don't know what their life is like at all. And I've had all kinds of different views about the military as I've grown up. Like I've, been like anti-military, pro-military, ambiguous, like some combination, all kinds of things. So I've, but I've never been in the military. I don't know anything about it. Like I don't know what it's like. So, to speak back to what I was saying before, like it's just like with gun control. It's just like with history. It's like any other thing. I don't know anything about it. Like I know very little about it, and it's, and there's a way to learn. And, people don't want to learn partly because they want to protect what they have. And that's not bad. They want to protect what they have because they believe that it's true and it's
part
going
of them.
It's part of them. Yes. I mean, that's more deeply. I think you're right there. It's part of them.
Insecurity is part of the human condition too. It's fundamentally hard to admit that you're completely wrong about something. It's a difficult thing to do just as a human, and it kind of takes practice. Like it took me practice, like especially in like a business or a group or project setting. Anytime something goes wrong, before pointing out what other people did wrong, I always try to stop and ask myself, what could I have done better? Let's start with all of the things that I did wrong before we start talking about what everyone else did wrong, you know?
We've come full circle to Dota.
Yes, exactly. And then you can apply that logic to your
I am the only constant in my Dota matches. It is no good for me to flame this shit build that Knoxville did on Doom last night, when in reality, I could have done better in that game. Yep. Yes.
It's important though.
Finally, we're back, guys.
Yeah, but that is a skill, just like anything else. You know, I don't think that really comes naturally to anyone. It just takes practice and doing it and realizing that, hey, when I admit that I'm wrong, that's really how you grow as a fucking human. You know, there's no shame in admitting that you're wrong and taking away from a mistake or, you know, being self-critical if the path is progression, baby, because that's where we're going. We're flying high.
Yeah. I think people feel shame. I know I feel shame. I feel ashamed when I admit that I'm wrong, and that's fine. You don't. Yeah, that's fine. I do. You know, I know I do, and I know I want to work on it. Like I know I want to get better, and I think one of the ways to get better is to engage. You asked like how do we sort of de-escalate from this high polarity? Well, I think one of the reasons you have to ask why are we so polarized? Yeah. And there's a lot of reasons. I'm not gonna pretend I know, but I know why one of the reasons I feel animus towards people who are who believe differently than me is because I'm constantly not near them. I'm constantly in around my own friend groups. I'm constantly in echo chambers. I'm constantly just reading books that are there to confirm knowledge about, you know, they're there to like support my ideas basically. Like I didn't go out and buy a gun control book that was gonna be say that.
You know, NRA
arm everybody.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. I didn't buy a gun control book that's like, you know, we should have like super strict gun control. You know, because I already believed from the get go or going into it, I had a predisposition, and the way you challenge that, the way you develop nuance, and then also just foster good relationships with people is reach out to them somehow. One way or the other. I think Facebook is a good way to do it. I think if you have people, if you have people on your feed who are posting things that are, it could be anything. Like
I need to start
what you described.
Format my Facebook.
Even what you have though, like what you described is something that you could address. You know, and it would probably go horribly. I'm going to tell you straightforward.
Not as someone
who's like really, depends. You asked the question, how do we de-escalate?
True.
And maybe they're not worth the effort, but maybe there's someone in your life, you know, or maybe there's someone you could reach out to or contact who's. The point is to find someone who doesn't agree with what you agree, talk about it, and in the process, just learn and understand and try and develop nuance.
I like that.
What I found is you also just find they're not monsters. They're not idiots. They're not monsters. They're not any of the monikers that you might put on them. You know, just like even like as a joke. Like I would say, oh man, people who think gun control should be more strict, they're just dumb. Like they're just idiots. Like it's a stupid idea.
That's a little bit how I feel about abortion. I won't lie. That is my one. I am very polarized about. I'm about as pro-choice as it gets, I think.
Well, yeah. So everyone has their different issues for it. You know, like it's and if you even for me personally, I found even in jest, I have the more the more and more I say it, and the less and less I talk to them and get like their feedback, the more I just think of them as actually being an idiot, and which I don't think is true. Like it's not analytically true. Like I know in my brain that's not true. No, but my heart is like telling me, oh yeah, that's true. Like that's just my emotions are telling me
that. Anyone who uses a digital medium experiences that. It's almost always easier to talk to people about anything difficult in real life than when that human aspect is taken away by a keyboard and a screen or a phone or you know any kind of medium like that. But boys, I think it's time we wrap this thing up. Any kind of closing remarks or thoughts that we didn't finish? I love the tangents, dude. I feel like my whole life is a digression into a tangent. You know what I mean? It's a perfect microcosm of how my brain works in the day-to-day operations of the Moonduck headquarters.
So hard to avoid tangents too. You know, it is good. No, I agree. No, like when I'm writing, when I'm talking to people, I just want to like, oh, this is so much more interesting. Let's just leave this behind. let's just leave this road way over here and go on this new road. And look, ooh, look, there's a side path on the new road, and that goes to a town. The town's gigantic. It's got an underground. Let's go on the underground.
I think I say this a lot, but if there's anything that I should really start practicing is I should focus more on my actual local issues. That is something I'm very poor at doing. I'm very out of touch with actual Canadian politics. Like realistically, I'm very out of touch with local politics. I know more about like random like the Oklahoma teachers strike shit. Like why the fuck am I reading about that? Honestly, why am I reading about that? What good is that going to do me? You know, I should actually I should practice that a little bit better.
Yeah. It all starts.
That's something
locally.
I should do.
That is a fair takeaway. Pretty much no matter where you are in the world, it all kind of starts locally, you know, and that is an area where you'll probably be able to observe the most impact for your effort if there's, you know, something that you really need to push for. Wowza.
Thanks for having me on again.
Yeah,
I really
dude.
Appreciate it. I know I always like feel like I'm sort of interrupting. And like sort of bursting into it because I'm like, hey, I'm doing like I want to like have like I like having conversations and stuff, but this is like a Dota like podcast, so it's you know I know there's people in the chat who are just never happy to see me, just never pleased by my appearance.
Oh, that's okay. I mean, we'd like to switch it up. We do the podcast a little sporadically, so it's nice to try different things, bring in some different perspectives, and get a little break from the Dota world and talk about the real world. I'm always happy to have you, dude. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, man. Thank you.
It's just a shame we can't do them in real life anymore. It was a lot more fun when you could just come by the studio and we could sit down and get the human element. You know, get the
True, man.
Last time we did that, the podcast ended with a crazy rant, probably about abortion or abstinence or some other sex-related thing that I'm very passionate about. Oh my. Trent, what is next on the docket for you, buddy? Are you gonna? I guess. We don't have much on the docket. Hopefully, we'll have some qualifiers coming up in the next few weeks because there's a few more majors.
Yeah.
But,
I mean, DAC's over. There's 3 days off, but I haven't heard anything about qualifiers happening. I think everyone's just flying for the Star Ladder tournament that happens, and then there's another Perfect World event.
Yep.
And then there's Epicenter. Like, it's just we're in the event swing of things. And then May is GESC Thailand, and then then there's Birmingham, and then there's PGL Super Major.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, qualifiers for Super Major will be some point in the relatively near future, I would imagine. Chinese visas are always a thing, so you got to plan in advance for that. And I don't think GESC qualifiers have happened yet either. Have they for Thailand?
I can't remember. I know the Birmingham ones haven't.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure about Thailand.
So all sorts of goodies to look forward to. Of course, if you enjoyed this podcast or joined us late, you can find the VOD on the Moonduck YouTube. And the audio only will also be available on Zyori.tv. Also, final shout out to the Multifocus. Trent, we have hit over 100 bottles sold, buddy. And that is an exciting landmark for a new supplement. Dude, we've got doctors taking this shit, accountants, concert musicians. Honestly, dude, the feedback has been pretty fucking spectacular. I think about a third of those 100 bottles sold were reorders. So people that bought a bottle, liked it, and then bought again, which is like the best testimonial you can get, baby. De-stress. Trent, I know you're stressed out, man. That chair is going to arrive. You're going to freak out about how to read the instructions. You need some multifocus. Lower that cortisol, baby. You got to level out.
Sorry. It never came. Hate to break it to you.
I actually need to file a claim for that. I mailed Trent a promo bottle of multifocus. I think it got lost in the post.
Sorry. Nikki tried to send me something for the baby, and it got lost, too. It got sent to my neighbor.
Really?
Maybe my neighbor took it.
Uh-oh. Maybe your neighbor took the multifocus, dude.
Maybe your neighbor's like really like not stressed.
Shit. Well, he's going to be disappointed to find that I don't think we shipped to Canada on the reg, so big time bummer there. But anyway, that's it, guys. We're done. Dylan, thank you again for joining us. Is there anywhere people can find you or follow? You have an Instagram or anything? I know you're not on Twitter, but no, that's it. Just the YouTube comments. If you're feeling testy, get it to YouTube, and then Dylan will be happy to read and write an essay.
Debate you in YouTube comments. Yeah, that sounds like a good day.
Hey, there were a couple Dylan comments on the other podcast on YouTube, so I don't know. Some of them were decently received.
I should make it. Yeah. We had a little back and forth on the YouTube. I should get a Twitter handle or something that I can. I'll try and swim that
for
together
next time.
For next time, so that I can be prepared.
Yeah, even Carlo's on Twitter now, so you've got some catching up to do. But
yeah, okay, man. Then I'm really slow rolling then.
Okay, fam. We will see you on the next podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. We are out.